I'm still shaking, honestly. 20 minutes later, my hands are finally steadying enough to hold this mic. Picture this. I'm in the kitchen about to make coffee, and suddenly there's this pounding, not a knock. A pounding at the front door, and when I open it, two guys in crisp, dark blue uniforms, complete with handcuffs, are standing there, and the taller one says, "Mr. Ethan Keller, you're under arrest." Just like that, straight out of a bad movie. My stomach dropped. I'm backing away, heart hammering, trying to figure out what insane HOA rule I broke now, when she appears. My wife, Clara, the woman who spends her evenings in a fuzzy robe, watching true crime documentaries and obsessing over the perfect sourdough starter. She steps into the doorway, takes one look at their badges, too shiny, you know, like they just came out of a Halloween costume box, and something cold and calculating flashes across her face, a look I have never, ever seen in the 12 years we've been together. "Gentlemen," her voice cut through the air, low and commanding, "step back from my husband." And I didn't even recognize the sound. It was like a complete stranger had just materialized in my kitchen. The next few seconds were a blur of motion, a shout, a heavy thud, and when I finally looked up, the two cops were running down the driveway. And the only thing standing between me and the panic attack I was about to have was Clara, breathing slightly hard, her usual soft eyes now totally hardened. All I knew was that the woman who just saved me was definitely not the Clara Keller who signed our tax returns. It all started with the deck. Of course, because in a neighborhood governed by an HOA, it's always the deck. I'd spent $8,000 minimum on a beautiful Brazilian hardwood extension for our anniversary, built perfectly, absolutely perfectly, to the letter of the Maple Creek bylaws. I hired Marcus Dale, the contractor everyone recommended, the guy who coached Little League, for crying out loud. And we even got the notorious HOA president, Brenda Thorne, to sign off on the preliminary sketches. Clara came home that Friday, saw it, dropped her briefcase and whispered, "Ethan, it's really something," walking onto the smooth planks barefoot. That weekend was perfect. Neighbors came over, we had a huge barbecue. Even the notoriously reclusive couple across the street stopped by. But Clara, she kept checking her phone, smiling politely, but her fingers were dancing across the screen, like she was conducting a silent orchestra. And I thought, maybe she's just stressed about work. She's an auditor for a non-profit, right? Then Monday hit, right in the gut. A violation notice. A fine of $300 a day, effective immediately, for an unauthorized structure exceeding the maximum allowable height by 5 inches. 5 inches. Marcus was livid, said it was impossible, that he'd measured everything twice, that Brenda had approved the whole schematic. He promised to come over with the original blueprints. But Clara's reaction? That was the strangest part. She barely glanced up from her glowing laptop. "Just take it down and rebuild it," she said, as casually as discussing what kind of pizza we should order. "It's not worth fighting Brenda over 5 inches, Ethan. Trust me." Trust her? The woman who spent 3 weeks pretending to be surprised by a deck I'd been planning for months. Yeah, something was definitely off. Mrs. Perkins, our sweet, slightly gossipy neighbor, caught me staring at the deck that afternoon. She leaned over the fence, whispering, "3 families, Ethan. 3 families left Maple Creek after building additions. All used the same contractor, Marcus Dale." She wouldn't elaborate, just patted my arm and shuffled back inside. Marcus, the guy with the 5-star rating and the Little League team, that didn't compute. But Mrs. Perkins had been right about a lot of things, including when she thought the mail carrier was casing houses, and he was arrested for theft 3 months later. I brought it up to Clara that night. She was hunched over files spread all over the dining room table, working late again. "Mrs. Perkins is just lonely." Clara dismissed me without looking up. She sees conspiracies everywhere. But then I noticed her files. They weren't audit reports. They had photographs, timestamps, and handwritten notes about meeting vacations and financial transfers, and before I could even ask, she swept them all into her black leather briefcase and snapped it shut. I couldn't sleep. The dismissiveness, the strange warnings, the sudden. Aggressive enforcement of an obscure rule it felt orchestrated. I got up for water around 2 a.m. and her car keys were gone. Her purse was gone. The bed was empty. I watched from the window just in time to see the tail lights of our SUV disappearing down Maple Creek Drive. 12 years of marriage and I had never doubted her. Not once. Sure, she had odd hours for conference calls sometimes, but sneaking out in the middle of the night, I stared at the ceiling until dawn, running through every late night, every quick kiss goodbye. Every time she'd said she was too tired to talk about work, she slipped back into bed at 4:30 a.m. I pretended to be asleep. She smelled like strong coffee, something chemical, and a floral perfume I'd never bought her. Marcus showed up the next morning, tape measure in hand, looking like a ghost. He measured the deck again and again. It's 41 inches, Ethan, exactly to code. The maximum allowed is 42. She's lying. Brenda Thorne was lying. But why? Josh Marcus hesitated. Brenda lost her husband in a nasty construction accident 2 years ago. She's super protective about safety codes. Super protective? The woman had greenlit 3-pool installations and the Petersons monstrous 2-story gazebo just last year. Then Marcus showed me something that made my blood run ice cold. A folder in his truck paperwork from his last 3 jobs on corner lots in Maple Creek. All of them receiving violation notices, all of them eventually selling their homes. I thought it was coincidence, he whispered, but 3 in 18 months. And now you. Clara came home early that day, which never happened. She walked straight onto the deck, looked out for a long minute, then turned to me with an expression that was part fear, part grim determination. "Tear it down this weekend, Ethan," she ordered. "I'll help you. We'll rebuild it shorter. Whatever Brenda wants, my wife, who had once fought the HOA for 6 months over the shade of our mailbox color, wanted to surrender immediately over 5 phantom inches. No, I said, we're fighting this. Something is wrong." She tensed. "Ethan," she started, then stopped, checking a buzzing phone, and her whole body snapped taut. "I need to make a call," she said, and vanished into the garage. I watched her through the kitchen window, pacing, gesturing emphatically. When she came back in, she was different, almost professional. "Do what you want about the deck," she said. "I have work to do," and locked herself in the home office for the rest of the night. That's when I started digging, and I'm not proud of it. But when you realize the person you share a bed with is a total stranger, fear makes you desperate. I checked the mileage on the SUV, 300 miles more than last week, and our town is tiny. I checked our joint credit card statements, multiple hotels in different cities, all during her supposed office hours. I found crumpled receipts in the console, coffee shops 50 miles away, and a purchase from an equipment surveillance store. Surveillance, my wife. The non-profit auditor needed surveillance gear. I sat in the garage, surrounded by evidence of a life I didn't recognize. And the worst part was, I had convinced myself for months it was just government job stress. But what if Brenda's violation? Marcus's setup, Mrs. Perkins's warning. What if it was all connected to whatever Clara was hiding? And more terrifying, what if she was working with them? So, I followed her. 2 a.m., desperate, stupid, feeling like a caricature in a cheap thriller. She drove to the industrial park on Route 17, pulled into the parking lot of a vacant building, and waited. 10 minutes later, a silver sedan arrived, a man in his 50s, expensive suit, even at this hour. They talked through rolled-down windows. Then, a third car, a younger woman who was openly weeping. I watched through binoculars as Clara handed her tissues, wrote something in a notebook, gave her a long, comforting hug. 20 minutes later, everyone drove away in different directions. Not exactly a torrid affair, was it? But definitely not an auditor's meeting. The next morning, she was already up, making coffee. "Sleep well?" she asked, not looking at me. "Fine," I lied. "You?" She smiled like the dead, a weird choice of words. I pushed down the anger. "What time did you get home last night?" "I thought I heard the garage door." Her hand stopped mid-paw, just for a flicker. I didn't go anywhere. "Ethan," she said calmly, looking me dead in the eye, "you must have been dreaming. Gaslighting." She was gaslighting me, looking me in the face and lying about something I had literally witnessed. "Right," I said, forcing a nod. "My mistake." 30 seconds after she left for work, Marcus texted, "Can I stop by? It's important." He looked wrecked. "Ethan, I got an email last night from your wife. The email address was clara.k.thompson.net. Official looking, and the message was short. Proceed with original deck specifications. Standard bonus applies upon violation notice. BT." My stomach turned. BT? Brenda Thorne. Marcus explained that he had received similar emails, always variations of Clara's name, on all 3 previous jobs. "Ethan, I think your wife has been setting people up, including you. She told me to build the deck to specific measurements, I'd get a bonus. And then Brenda would file violations. Clean profit, except..." He trailed off, "except you were her husband." The room spun. "How much?" I asked quietly. "How much did she pay you?" Marcus looked utterly ashamed. $500 per job. But I swear, I thought it was a quality control thing, testing contractors. That afternoon, Brenda Thorne invited me over for coffee. Her house was immaculate, but sterile. No photos of the dead husband Marcus mentioned. Just pristine walls painted in HOA-approved colors. "My husband died in a construction accident." Her voice cracked perfectly, tears welling up on cue. "I know it seems strict, Ethan, but every violation I write is because I don't want another family to suffer what I suffered. Those 5 inches matter for safety." I almost believed the Grieving Widow Act. But then I noticed her manicure, fresh, expensive, tiny diamonds embedded in the polish. Strange for someone supposedly living on a fixed income. And the coffee, I recognized the label, $70 a pound. My auditor wife couldn't afford that coffee, and I doubted Brenda could either. I got home and found a bank statement on my desk. Not ours, Clara's private account. $3,500 deposited every 2 weeks from DMW Legal Services. Not only that, next to the statement was a burner phone. Recent calls to unknown numbers, texts in code. Package delivered to Target 3. Surveillance confirms pattern. Subject unaware. Proceeding to phase 2. I felt sick. Was I the subject? Clara walked in, saw my face and froze. "What's wrong?" she asked carefully. "Everything." I wanted to scream, "Everything is wrong." Instead, I just said I was tired. She studied me, then nodded slowly. "I'm going out tonight," she announced. "Client emergency. Might be late. An audit client emergency at 7 p.m. I installed the tiniest hidden camera I could find while she was in the shower, tucked into the bookshelf. She came downstairs, dressed all in black, tactical pants, a dark jacket, loading a professional camera with a long-range lens, multiple phones, and a backpack. "Don't wait up," she called, and she was gone. Michael called at midnight. "Ethan, I have to tell you something else. Brenda, she's not who she says she is. I did some research. No record of a husband dying in a construction accident. No obituary, nothing. Brenda Thorne doesn't have a dead husband. The pieces were shifting, forming a horrible, beautiful picture." "Then who is she?" I asked. Marcus was quiet. "I don't know, but Ethan, your wife does. I saw them having lunch last week. Very friendly, very familiar." I think he paused. "I think we're both being played." The next day, I found more business cards in Clara's car. Not one identity, 6 different names, 6 different companies, all with her photo. Sarah Rollins, insurance investigator. Clara Thompson, legal consultant. Seat Keller, property assessor. Who was this woman? I'd married Clara Keller, the quiet auditor who liked true crime and hated cilantro. Now I was living with a ghost. I confronted her that night. "Who are you?" I demanded, throwing the cards on the table. She went white, then red. "You went through my car." Not denial, not explanation, just rage that I found her secrets. "You're running some kind of scam," I shouted. She actually laughed. "A scam? You think I'm... She stopped herself. I can't do this right now. I need space from this. She gestured at me like I was the problem and grabbed her keys. Brenda showed up an hour later, all sweetness and concern. I heard shouting. Is everything okay? I almost spilled everything, but the eager look in her eyes stopped me. We're fine, I snapped. She lingered, then pulled out her phone. Ethan, I hate to show you this, but as a friend, the screenshots look damning. Text messages between Clara and Brenda, discussing filing fraudulent violations and splitting profits. Clara, file the violation tomorrow. Brenda, but the measurements are actually legal. Clara, make something up. He'll pay anything to avoid court. I felt my knees buckle. I'm so sorry, Ethan, Brenda whispered, catching my arm. I tried to resist, but she threatened to report my husband's accident as fraud. She's been blackmailing me for months. Clara checked into the Marriott downtown. Separation, she called it. Until you decide to trust me again. The irony was almost funny. Almost. I sat in our empty house, running through the hidden camera footage, the bank statements, the motel meeting, because I also followed her to a cheap motel where she met a weeping woman. My mind was still stuck on Marcus's theory, Clara running both sides of a real estate scam, profiting from the chaos she created. But the crying woman? The way Clara had hugged her, that seemed genuine. Unless that was part of the con, too. Professional criminals could fake anything, right? I opened my laptop, ready to email my lawyer about divorce, when a notification popped up. Anonymous sender. Encrypted attachment. Inside was a USB drive's worth of data. Files labeled Thorn Real Estate Fraud Investigation. Video testimonies from 6 different families, property transfer records, photos of a smiling, wealthy Brenda Thorn celebrating house closings, and a voice recording, "This is victim 4. Clara Keller helped me understand what happened. Brenda Thorn forced us out using fake violations. The contractor, Marcus Dale, was in on it. They made $70,000 off our house. Clara said she's building a case, gathering evidence for a lawsuit. She's the only one who believed us. 6 families, 6 testimonies, all naming Brenda and Marcus. No one was accusing Clara. I reached for my phone to call her, demanding an explanation. When Marcus's text came in, emergency, Clara just broke into my work van, threatened me. Meet at my office now. I have security footage. Come alone. My heart raced. Security footage of Clara threatening someone. That would be the proof. The undeniable proof she was a criminal. I grabbed my keys and rushed out, speeding like an idiot. Behind me on the computer, one final file opened automatically. A video. Clara speaking directly to the camera. If you're watching this, Ethan, I'm sorry for everything. But please don't trust Marcus. Don't meet him anywhere alone. The video cut off. I drove anyway. Stupid, reckless, desperate. Marcus's office was a converted space above his garage. He was waiting at the door. "Thank God you came," he said, ushering me inside. The footage is shocking. Clara's completely lost it. But the office was too neat, too staged. And Marcus kept checking his phone, radiating nervous energy. "Show me," I demanded. He pulled up a grainy, shaky video of someone in Clara's jacket near his van. Definitely fake. "Marcus," I said slowly, "this isn't real." His face changed. "You're smarter than I thought," he admitted, reaching into his desk drawer. When his hand came out, it held a gun. "Sorry, Ethan. This was supposed to be clean. Quick sale. Everyone moves on. But you had to go digging." My blood ran cold. Brenda's plan? I managed. He smiled, a nasty, calculating smile. "Our plan. We've been partners for 3 years. 6 houses for 100,000 profit each. You were supposed to be number 7. He gestured to the window. "The police scanner says there's a domestic disturbance here. Crazy husband threatens the contractor. Tragic shooting. Self-defense, of course." Then the doorbell rang. Asterisk. Marcus's gun stayed pointed at my chest, but his hand was shaking. Heavy boots, multiple people outside. The knock came, loud and official. Police! Open up! Marcus's eyes widened. Real cops weren't supposed to be here yet. He was supposed to call them after the shooting. Tell them everything's fine, he hissed, gesturing with the gun toward the door. I walked to the door, mind racing, and through the peephole, I saw 2 officers in full uniform. But something was off. The badges were wrong. Too shiny. Fake cops. Then I heard her voice. Police. We have a warrant for Joshua Roberts. The voice was authoritative, commanding, and totally Clara's. Arrest warrant for HOA violations. Threatening behavior toward HOA officials. This was insane. Completely insane. I yanked the door open. These are fake cops. I shouted. Marcus is trying to, but the 2 men in uniform shoved past me. Subject is delusional, Marcus announced calmly, slipping the gun back into his drawer. Use force if necessary. The taller one reached for my arm, and that's when Clara appeared behind them. Bathrobe over street clothes, looking absolutely furious. Gentlemen, she said quietly, you're committing felony fraud. Step aside. The shorter cop made the mistake of laughing. The taller one made the bigger mistake of reaching for Clara's arm. What happened next took maybe 3 seconds. Clara twisted, ducked, and suddenly the cop was face down on Marcus's porch, his fake badge clattering away. The second guy sprinted down the street like the devil himself was chasing him. Marcus lunged for the desk drawer, but Clara was faster. One kick sent the drawer slamming shut on his fingers. Recording everything, she announced, pointing to her phone mounted on the railing. Including you pulling a gun on my husband. Car door slammed. Real police this time. 3 squad cars, lights flashing, and in the middle of them, a silver sedan containing a man in an expensive suit. David Maxwell introduced himself as we sat in Marcus's office, now a crime scene. An attorney representing 6 families defrauded by Brenda Thorne and Marcus Dale, he explained. Clara's been my investigator for months. I stared at my wife, who was calmly giving her statement to a detective. Investigator? I repeated, stupidly. David smiled. Private investigator, licensed by the state. Specializes in real estate fraud. Best in the business, Mr. Keller. He showed me his bar card and documentation of the civil lawsuit. Brenda targets corner lots because they sell for a premium. Marcus creates the violations using his contractor access. They pressure families to sell fast, below market value, then Brenda flips them for a huge profit. Classic scheme. I felt like an idiot. The hidden cameras, the surveillance, the late-night meetings all legitimate investigation work. The crying woman at the motel, victim testimony. The multiple business cards, cover identities for different cases. The payments from DMW Legal, that was David M. Walker paying his investigator. But their mail. I protested, my voice cracking. Marcus got an email from Clara telling him to create the violation. David shook his head. Spoofed. Brenda sent it, pretending to be Clara, to manipulate Marcus into thinking he had backup. Classic misdirection to pin the whole thing on your wife if it blew up. Clara appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted. Can I talk to Ethan? She asked quietly. The detective nodded and everyone filed out, leaving us alone in the office where Marcus had almost killed me. You made me the bait, I said finally, the anger and the relief fighting inside me. For months, you let me think you were having an affair. Let me doubt everything. All to catch Brenda. Clara sat heavily in Marcus's chair. I wanted to tell you every single day, Ethan. But victims die in these cases. Witnesses disappear. I couldn't risk it. Risk what? I shouted. That I'd tell someone? That I'd protect my own wife? She looked at me then, truly looked at me. You installed cameras in our house. You followed me. You went through my private files. Her voice cracked. You thought I was a criminal, Ethan. You actually believed I could be. Because you lied. I yelled back. Every day, every night, sneaking around, secret phones, mysterious payments. What was I supposed to think? We sat in silence, the weight of 4 months of deception crushing us both. I was protecting you, Clara whispered. I was trying to trust you, I countered. Neither of us had the moral high ground here. Outside, They were loading Marcus into a squad car. Brenda had been arrested at home, apparently trying to flee through her backyard with a suitcase full of cash. The two fake cops were being questioned separately, already turning on each other. The USB drive. Clara said quietly, "Did you open the last file? My video message?" I shook my head. She pulled out her phone and showed me the full recording I'd only seen half of. Her face filled the screen, urgent and afraid. "If you're watching this, Ethan, I'm sorry for everything. But please don't trust Marcus. Don't meet him anywhere alone. He's dangerous and he's desperate. If he thinks you know too much." The video showed her checking her watch. "I'm heading to his office now. If I'm right, he's setting a trap. If I'm wrong, I owe him an apology. Either way, please be careful. I love you." I should have said that more. "I love you, Ethan. Remember that." The timestamp showed she'd recorded it an hour before Marcus's emergency text to me. She'd known. She'd come to save me, fake cops and all. "How did you know about the fake cops?" I asked, completely spent. Clara gave a weak, tired smile. "Because I told Brenda about them. Said they were special security I'd hired to intimidate you. If you didn't cooperate with the deck teardown." She jumped at the idea and hired the same guys for her own trap. I played her perfectly, made her think I was an ally. "The deck," I said suddenly. "You knew all along it would trigger the investigation." She nodded. I planted the fake Yelp review recommending Marcus, posted it in the neighborhood forum. Brenda contacted him, and then you hired him based on my suggestion. I manipulated everything. The admission hung between us. She'd used our anniversary, our home, our marriage as weapons in her investigation. Was any of it real? I asked quietly. The surprise, the happiness, us. Clara's eyes filled with tears. All of it, Ethan. Every moment except the lies. But which moments were which? That was the question neither of us could answer. David knocked on the door frame. "Clara, we need your statement downtown." Ethan, you two as a witness and victim. We stood awkward and broken. 12 years of trust shattered by 4 months of necessary deception and desperate suspicion. As we walked to separate cars, her with David, me with the detective, I caught her eye one last time. She mouthed, "I'm sorry." And I nodded, because what else could I do?